countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey! It is now time for more of that last comic shop podcast place.
That is right. We are opening up the shop to newbies and providing them bottles of copper tone so that they get their bronzer on.
It is Bronze Age this week.
That's right. For the oldies and the moldies that remember those Bronze Age books and those bronzed characters and all the bronzedness that comes with all this bronzing about.
Adam Warlock was like this close to being George Hamilton. He looked gorgeous.
Miles Bronson.
He was...
I gotta ask, that one scene, was that James Bond and Zardoz?
It's possible. If you're wondering what we're talking about, we'll get to that in just a second. I'm the host with the most, Andy Larson. I'm joined by Chad Smith and Jay Scott, as well as the wonderful George from Shortbox Summary for another Marvel Spectacular this week. And this is JA's pick. So instead of Silver Surfer, he's decided that we should read more cosmic characters from Marvel. And what are we reading this week, JA?
We're reading Adam Warlock. Specifically, the original Jim Starlin run, the beginning of the Jim Starlin run. So it's mainly the story of Warlock versus Magus.
So for those folks that grew up in the 90s and were like, oh yeah, there's that Infinity War, and why is there that purple guy that looks like Adam Warlock? This one just has a fro, which I always thought was an interesting choice. Fro.
Where did the fro go?
Evidently, by the 90s, that was poo-poo.
No, he had a man bun. He had a
Yes,
man
he
bun
did.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh.
He was always fashionable, Adam Warlock's evil dark side. George, have you ever read these particular issues before?
These issues, no. I'm more familiar with Adam Warlock's later work as he reached a new phase of his career when he did the Infinity Watch. I'm more familiar with that. I had always wanted to go back to this era, but I honestly never had a reason to until today. Thank you so much for putting a gun to my head and demanding that I read these books.
It's like an early Christmas present, right? I mean, George, don't ever say I didn't give you things. I also give you work to do every single time you're on an episode of The Last Comic Shop. I ask you to come up with some of the movies and music and other comic books that were coming out about the same time that these particular issues were on newsstands. And we do that to provide some social context. Plus, it's fun. Stuff that happened in, 1975?
75, yeah. I went with the first issue of Warlock when it came back. So that's something that I was really confused about. You texted me like, hey, we're looking to read basically this book, this Treasury Edition. These are the issues within it. And I thought it was so strange that you were like, yeah, we got to read issues 178 to 181 and then issues 9 to 12. I was like, well, what the hell about the first 8 issues? That doesn't make sense. And then doing a little digging, there was a Warlock book that ran in 1972 and then ended in 73. And then 3 years later, they were just like, yeah, screw it. Warlock number 9. It was so weird.
You know what? Exactly how Marvel should be doing their numbering. Not every 2 years they bring out a new issue 1.
I mean, hard to agree. I think I'm pretty vocal complaining about that. The legacy numbering has kind of fixed it. But man, is it just frustrating, especially since it seems like, oh, here's an excuse to print a $9 issue. I'm like, oh, you bastards. So here's the deal, man. Not a whole lot on 1975s. For example, I hit up my very reliable Box Office Mojo. There's just no data for October 1975. There's apparently no movies came out.
Wow.
So I made the executive decision. I instead went with September 1975 because I could find some information for all of those. I'm going to talk about something that didn't come out in September 1st. I'm going to talk about the big movie of 1975. We're all living post-Jaws. So Jaws comes out in the summer and kind of just reshapes the movie industry for years to come. So this was the last traditional movie year, I guess, without the blockbuster, oh, we got to get something lined up for the summer for big release. That was the start of that mentality. You can tell because these are the movies in September 1975. Number 1 at the box office, Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yay!
Someone pointed out that Tim Curry is officially a Disney princess, and that made me real happy.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah, Good for them. Number 2 at the box office, Dog Day Afternoon.
The Al
Attica.
Pacino movie.
Attica. That's a good one.
Number 3 at the box office, 3 Days of the Condor.
That's
Is that Robert Redford?
yes.
These are all gems thus far. I've seen all of them. I'm that old.
And then number 4, and this is the last one because this is the only data I could find. Give Him Hell, Harry, which is a one-man show about the presidency of Harry S. Truman.
The Hamilton of its day.
I am more familiar with the My Chemical Romance song, Give Him Hell, Harry, which I assume is a direct reference to this movie, because that seems like the kind of thing Gerard Way would give a shit about.
Was that in his parade?
I think so. Moving into the songs, number 5 on Billboard's Hot 100, we got Fight the Power Part 1 by the Isley Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a song.
Yeah, it was a song. I don't recall it. Maybe it's like part 2 is the one that we have to pay attention to.
Is the one that stands out. Number 4, I'm Sorry by John Denver. Number 3, At 17 by Janis Ian.
These are rough songs.
I saw her on the Saturday Night Live thing.
Time. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was the debut episode.
She was. Yeah, it was her. It was George Carlin.
Not Paul Simon. That was the second episode.
I actually just watched that episode. That episode's incredible. It's just a Simon and Garfunkel reunion concert with like 2 sketches maybe. And the rest seems like, oh yeah, the show was experimental as hell. Number 2, Rhinestone Cowboy by Glenn Campbell.
Yes.
Rhinestone Cowboy.
That is the first banger on this list. Forget 17. Forget the part 1, part 2, part 4. You just have Rhinestone Cowboy. Not the best Glenn Campbell song, though. I will say, for those folks that really want to put their money on Glenn Campbell, I'll go Wichita Lineman every single day of the week. I am a lineman for the county. That's a great song.
Number 1 Billboard's Hot 100 for September 75 is Fame by David Bowie.
Fame makes a man think things are. That's a great song. That's another banger. Yeah, I'm glad that we finished strong with this list.
Yeah.
Because
it was looking pretty peaked early on.
Number 10 was Feel Like Making Love.
what? Why didn't we talk about the bottom half? Bad Company's down. These are the songs we should be talking about.
Wasted Days and Wasted Nights by Freddie Fender.
That's a good one.
Fallen in Love by Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds.
Hamilton, Joe Frank, and Reynolds. Are they a trio? Is it Hamilton, Joe? Is it
Hamilton,
duo, Frank,
Joe
Reynolds?
Frank, ampersand Reynolds. Number 7, Run, Joey, Run by David Geddes. And number 6, Could It Be Magic, Barry Manilow.
You would have missed out on Barry Manilow. My mom loves some Barry Manilow.
Oh, well,
Get that.
don't worry, because I have 11 TV shows that were at the top of the Nelson ratings this is for the year of 1975. I couldn't
All
find.
right.
Number 11, the reason I'm going to 11 is because I love this show, Happy Days. Number 10 was the ABC Monday Night Movie.
I saw Superman 2 for the first time on the ABC.
On Monday Night Movie?
And they always play James Bond movies, too.
Hell yeah. Number 9, The $6 Million Man.
Yes!
We can
That's
rebuild it. We have the technology.
The second best Steve Austin ever. I'm more partial to the Texas Rattlesnake myself, but I don't want to discount what Steve Austin did for us in the 70s.
There is a great episode of that show where he fights a robot Bigfoot that actually is just Andre the Giant dressed up. So I mean, what? With those kind of chops, I
Can't believe it was number 9. Yeah. Number 8 was Rhoda, which was the spin-off of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. It's like this is just like some character who was like a dickhead to Mary Tyler Moore. And then by like the second episode, she was off the show and had her own TV show.
Yeah.
It's insane.
The bandanas, she wore the bandanas, made it very popular to walk around in jeans and a bandana. All the ladies in the 70s did it.
Let's see if you can get number 7 from just me humming the theme song. Wham, 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 wham,
Great it!
I'm
coming, Elizabeth! I'm coming, Elizabeth!
Sanford and Son was number 7. Number 6, a show I'm not familiar with, Phyllis.
Does it have Phyllis Diller in it?
Yeah.
That would be the only thing I could think of.
Phyllis was the second spin-off from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
There you go.
All spin-offs.
Is that actually true?
Yes.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, God. We used to have everything in this country. Can you believe it?
It starred Cloris Leachman as Phyllis Lindstrom, been Mary Richards' friend, neighbor, and landlady on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Number 5, The Bionic Woman.
Yeah, she was much hotter than Steve Austin. I would have taken her any day.
Certain point of view, but yeah.
From my point of view, I know my sister absolutely loved The Bionic Woman and would try every single day to just crush a tennis ball in her hand, and would just end up being very annoyed, and her hand would...
Number 4 was Maude, a spinoff of All in the Family, starring the Golden Girls chick, Bay Arthur, yeah.
That was a very progressive show for the time.
A lot of spin-offs.
Well, that, and I'm noticing that
75.
3 of the top 6 focusing on women. That's nice. Progressive times. Number 3, Laverne and Shirley.
Another spin-off!
I absolutely love this show, yeah.
Shots Beer. Hello, Levine. Hello, Shoyle.
We're talking about theme songs.
Yes.
Huss and Pfeffer Incorporated, because we're gonna do it our way, yes, our way. Make all our dreams come true, and we'll do it our way.
And they put the glove and it's going down the
Yes.
line.
What an incredible show. I love it so much. Number 2, Rich Man, Poor Man.
Is that like a mini-series, baby? Question mark?
I think so. Yeah, there's only 9 episodes of it. An examination of the
miniseries.
trials and tribulations of the Jordig family from the period following World War II to the late 1960s. Yeah, it seems like it was like their version of like a prestige like HBO type show, because it's got like real talent. It's got like Nick Nolte in it, Peter Strauss, Susan Blakely. Like it's got like real actors in it. All due respect to Penny Marshall.
Laverne's got a lot done. Both of those guys. Titans in the industry.
Honestly, my favorite thing Penny Marshall's ever done is probably direct A League of Their Own. I love that movie so much. Number 1 TV show at the time, All in the Family.
Oh, wow.
Archie Bunker.
Where's MASH? Where's MASH? I thought MASH was on for forever and a day.
72 to 83.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're into the years with like Sherman Potter and Charles. We're out of the Wayne Rogers era with Trapper John, which those are the good years. Sad times. You know that was Generation X's bedtime alarm is when the MASH theme came on. You were just playing with your race cars, your action figures.
Toys, yeah.
You heard it come on the TV and you're like, oh, it's time to go to bed.
I think I talked about it before here. It's basically just Scrubs set during the Korean War. Like it's just like weird hijinks, and then it turns super incredibly serious at the drop of a hat. So,
And when actors would quit, they would kill them off screen, and it'd be real sad.
That's because they didn't want him to come back. They hated McLean Stevenson. They're like, we don't want you to come back. We'll kill you.
Your chopper went down. See you later.
All right. So comics.
Comics, I don't believe in free ads, but man, do I love free ads for comiccron.com, which is a website I love just because I think it has incredible data. No sales charts for 1975, unfortunately. I think their records start in like 84, and even then very incomplete records. So what I did, because I like you guys so much, I found a blog post by Marvel editor Tom Brevoort.
Ooh.
And I found his considerations for the 5 best comics of 1975.
Best as in quality or best as in sales or?
Best as in quality.
Okay.
Well, Tom's a pretty reasonable guy, so
Knowledgeable guy, yeah.
I'm curious about his list.
And I'm going to do this in no particular order. So first book, Giant Size Man Thing, issue 4. A heartfelt, emotion-driven Steve Gerber story concerning a dead, bullied school kid anchors the issue. Gerber experiments with using huge blocks of text on certain pages, effectively writing prose rather than comics. Back that up with the first solo Howard the Duck story, as illustrated by Frank Brunner, and you've got a release for the ages.
I gotta check that one out. I think that one probably have read it at some point, but it does not ring a bell.
Next on the list, Giant Size X-Men #1. Yeah.
First appearance of Magic, among other things.
Not the best issue from that era. They were trying things out. I don't think that series gets going.
What?
Until John Byrne's on there.
I don't think that series gets going till Ed Brubaker writes X-Men Deadly Genesis in 2005 to expand on the story of giant-sized X-Men. Next on the list, Amazing Spider-Man issue 149, the big finale of Jerry Conway's multi-year defining run, as well as the wrap-up of the original Clone Saga.
There you go. Just drop them in those industrial fire stacks. What were they?
Smokestacks.
Smokestacks.
Yeah, just drop them in there. Yeah, whatever. The body's in there. It's
done
fine.
and done. Problem solved. Never have to worry about it again.
Probably taken care of. Next on the list is first issue special. Issue 9 did make much of a ripple at the time in terms of establishing the character as a heavy hitter, but the Mary Pascoe, Walt Simonson, Dr. Fate story in the...
Yes, no, I agree that is probably one of the best issues of first issue special. Again, you can get it in a hardback. I did it a recommendation previously on another show where you can get it, and I would recommend it because not only is there that, but there's also some pretty cool Jack Kirby stuff. First issue special was fun. Yeah.
He has a bonus recommendation here, which is All-Star Comics number 3 got a DC First Treasury edition printed in 1975.
Chad's got that.
Oh, yeah. I've also got the Dr. Fate issue, too.
Oh, man, I just realized I missed one. Strange Tales featuring Warlock, issue 181. Is one of his best comics of 1975.
I think that's a perfect segue into our commercial break and our review of these Warlock series. As if Tom enjoys it, that's all we need to know. Thank you so much, George, for all of these great musics and movies and TV shows and comic books from 1975. We'll be right back with more Last Comic Shop right after this with our comic book from 1975. It is some issues of Strange Tales into some issues of some Warlock, and it all deals with Warlock fighting Magus. Stay tuned.
Is 181 the clown shoes one? Because I want to hear what Tom has to say.
181 is the clown one.
Yes. Yes.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast and their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
From Fantagraphics, The Santos Sisters Volume 1 hardcover collection. Compiling issues 1 to 5 of the hit indie comic book series. Join Amber and Alana, two ordinary girls with extraordinary powers, as they fight crime, date dumb guys, and try to stay sane in a world full of assassins, zombies, crazy ex-girlfriends, and more. A mix of Archie comics meet Love and Rockets, with a healthy dose of kick-ass action. Order your copy today.
And we are back to talk some Bronze Age Adam Warlock. This is my pick, so I get to decide who does what. So first, let's get the creators by Chad. Chad, who did all this stuff besides Jim Starlin? Because he did a lot.
We should mention the books we're reading. It's Strange Tales 178 to 181. We'll also be discussing Warlock issues 9 through 12. The story is written by Sam Giltern. Art by Jim Starlin, and inks by J.L. Minirats, all, of course, Jim Starlin's. Occasionally he was helped out by Steve Lealola and Joseph Rubenstein on finishes. Alan Weiss did some inks on Strange Tales 180. Al Milgrom did inks on 181. Steve Lealola did inks on Warlock 9 and 10. You had Annette Kowecki on letters for the Strange Tales 178, and Tom Warzakowski handled the letters for the remainder of the books. And then Glynis Wine did some colors. Steve Lealola and Petra Goldberg handled the colors on Warlock 13.
Yeah. It's also important to note that Len Wein and Archie Goodwin and Marv Wolfman all worked as editors on these particular books. It was kind of an interesting time for Marvel, right? Archie Goodwin was the editor-in-chief at the time, and it was kind of like a fiefdom where like Archie gave a lot of creative control out to the writers and the artists that were working. So you had like Steve Englehart like fiefdom, and then you had Jim Starlin over here, and then you had Steve Gerber down here, and you had some artists and other writers like kind of circling in their orbits. But that all went away once Jim Shooter came in, because books weren't being done. People were partying too much and just doing whatever. And so he was like, no, we're going to centralize this. And so a lot of people got upset. But this is that wild time in the 70s where people were just doing stuff.
Which might explain why we go from issue 178 to then issue 9 eventually for a bit. And it all is one continuing storyline, which makes sense when you're reading it in a trade or an omnibus form because they just put it next to each other. But if you're looking to get this on single issues, one, I hope you have some money, because I don't think some of these, like first appearance of Pip, first appearance of Gamora, they're not going in the buck bins. But Andrew, tell us, besides first appearances of Pip and Gamora, what happens?
Well, this follows a short-lived storyline that was going on in the Warlock book that was written by Roy Thomas, where basically Warlock was Space Jesus on Counter-Earth. But he's left Counter-Earth, and he's back out in space. He has the Soul Gem, and he's just flying along, and he runs afoul of the Universal Church of Truth, which turns out is being run by a future version of himself named the Magus. Who only becomes crazy because he was kidnapped by the In-Betweener at some point and forced into madness. But later on, you find out that actually the Magus is the champion of life and the antagonist, our arch rival of the champion of death, which is Thanos, because Thanos does show up. It's an Adam Warlock book. But basically, Adam Warlock and Thanos team up to fight the Magus, and Adam Warlock is like, I don't want to be the Magus, because he's all about control and rules, and I'm all about free love and bronzer. That's pretty much your 10-cent synopsis. Still very Space Jesus-y. More Space Jesus-y than anything that Silver Surfer's ever been in.
He's Space Jesus, but he doesn't want to be a leader.
Yeah.
I'll just do things, but I don't want to, because eventually leaders get corrupted. I guess that's the absolute power corrupts absolutely bit.
Yeah, but doesn't he have the Soul Gem actively corrupting him all the time anyway?
Right.
This is also, I think, early on in the Soul Infinity Gem era. They hadn't quite worked out what these things were, or what they were going to be.
I mean, not just that. This is 3 years after Watergate, right? Where the idea of power, the idea of rulers is like not to be trusted. Like we were talking about the movies that were coming out, Dog Day Afternoon, 3 Days of the Condor. Like the reason these are so 70s is because they're so depressing, man. Like same thing with the music, right? Like nothing feels good because like the person who was supposed to be the leader of the free world had the Watergate scandal, which like completely torpedoes his career, the reputation, everyone's perception of Washington. And so all of a sudden, like you couldn't trust anything. And so like I feel like was 1975, was that like one of the first years of the like gas rationing too, where it was just like economic depression, and it was just like all these things were coalescing at the same time. The one good thing about 75, SNL baby, but besides that, like everything else just sucked ass all the time. So like of course the hero would turn into the villain, right? Right.
But this is actually an extremely important set of books for those folks that know about the Infinity Gauntlet and everything that comes out later on in Jim Starlin's runs in the 90s, right? You have to read this because, again, to J.A.'s point, this is where a lot of those seeds are first planted. At this time, there is only one Infinity Gem. They don't even call it an Infinity Gem. They just call it the Soul Gem. There's only one. It's green, it's in Adam Warlock's head, and that's it. It's vampiric, sucks people's souls out, and that's all it does.
Yeah, it gets that tiki monster guy.
Yeah.
Right in there.
Krator. What a great name.
There is Krator. But this also comes on the heels of another storyline that Jim Starlin was doing in Captain Marvel, which was actually where Marvel fights, and he gets the cosmic awareness, and he fights Thanos for the first time, and Thanos really becomes one of the big baddies of Marvel. At that time, the biggest thing that you could get to become the universal ruler of everything was the Cosmic Cube. That was the big thing. And so, like, this ups the ante a little bit. This is like, now I've got the Soul Gem. And later on, you continue reading this, Thanos goes after gems. and tries to wipe out half the universe, which, again, he perfects later on. But this all sets the stage for everything that happens in Infinity Gauntlet. So, George, you've read Infinity Gauntlet. You never read this, and now I know it's depressing, but did this fill in some gaps for you? Did this feel like that this gave you some idea of where some of these ideas would eventually go?
1,000%, because I read Infinity Gauntlet, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. I feel like I'm missing some stuff, though. And then a few years later, they reprinted Thanos Quest, like the 2-issue miniseries. And I read that. I was like, oh, wow, that makes a lot more sense now. And now at 34 years old, I read this story. I'm like, oh, this makes, like, complete sense now. Like, everything is lined up and makes just the most crystal clear picture. Well, I think it took 16 years between this book and Infinity Gauntlet.
And they killed him off. They killed Thanos off in between because he comes back. Going to be my recommendation is the return of Thanos in Silver Surfer issue 34, which built up to Thanos Quest and then Infinity Gauntlet.
I really feel that Jim Starlin didn't want anybody playing with his characters. Like I told you, like, again, Jim Starlin left, I feel, because, there was more centralization at Marvel. Maybe he wasn't being able to do the ideas he wanted. He went over to the indie books. Eventually he went to DC. And so he eventually comes back to Marvel.
Editor's note, if you listen to our interview with Jim Starlin from a Comic-Con a few years back, he actually gets fired from DC after killing Robin. And he mentions how it turned out well for him, because he goes back over to Marvel, does that whole Infinity Gauntlet thing, and, gets that big cameo in Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
This was at a time in Marvel where there was sort of a big argument between company rights and creative rights, something that Jim Starlin was not afraid to address in issue 181, where he essentially made a bunch of the editors at Marvel clowns.
But he does mention that's just his perception.
Where he's essentially calling out Stan Lee and John Romita as company men.
And that's because that's what they were. I mean, I think at that time, not only Stan Lee was editor-in-chief or publisher, it's one of those.
Yeah.
And definitely John Romita was art director at that point.
Yep. And then you had Len Wein and
Marv
Wolfman. They were going back-to-back as editors-in-chief. And so they all get a lashing here in issue 1.
Well, yeah, it just basically there's a giant pile of trash that occasionally has a bit of a diamond here or there. So sometimes they get some good stuff out of all this mountain of garbage they're putting out. Ouch.
But I just think this particular run of issues is absolutely fascinating. The art is something that's just wonderful. I know that we talked about it on a previous episode when we did The 6 Voyages of Lone Sloan, how I feel like if Jim Starlin had not read that before doing these issues, I would eat my hat, because just the way he lays out the pages, the way that he does all these crazy, wild, spaced things going on, these alien races, just the way that he paces things, it just reminds me so much of what was going on in the European comics at the time.
But what I will say, and this is to his credit, is he manages to marry that with the sensibilities of the time. And that's why you get a recap page in every issue, which off camera we were kind of teasing a little bit about all the varied recap pages where eventually they just become full text dialogue or full text pages. But he makes it so that you understand where you are in each issue. And while all this crazy pants stuff is going on that I'm sure is, affected by the European market and everything else at the time, it's still accessible. And I think that's one of the threads that Jim Starlin, it's what makes him so popular. It's what made these stories last so long and become as influential as they were. Like, he still would give you an entrance point, and then you get to watch all this crazy, wacky stuff, and then you're like, what happened? Oh, he'll tell you again at the beginning of the next issue.
Plus, this is another chapter in the continuing evolution of Thanos becoming a really, really interesting character at Marvel. I'm struck by, like, halfway through this book, like, Thanos comes to Warlock's rescue, and he's like, oh, I'm about to be beat by Magus. He's like, no, I'm here. Not only that, but I sent Gamora to kill Magus for you. Why is Thanos being so nice? Turns out Thanos is being nice because Magus is actually a bigger threat to him than the Bronze Golden Child, which is Adam Warlock.
I do like that part of the story where it's just like, we've got to stop Magus at all costs. I'm going to send this assassin of mine and give her reality camouflage and try to take him out. Oh, that didn't work. Adam Warlock, you have to kill yourself. Like, that's the only thing we can do now.
You're going to have to make the sacrifice.
Not going to like plan B, but we do have a plan B.
Princessism, it's a good idea. You should do this. Totally. It's fine. And Adam Warlock doesn't even blink twice. He's like, yeah, I guess I'm going to have to. Sure. Thanos thought it was a great idea. By the end of issue 11, Thanos being set up again as the big bad. That will continue in some wonderful issues of Avengers, an Avengers annual, and a Marvel 2-in-1 annual, which, gosh, you got to read because it continues this awesome building of Thanos as one of the most interesting bad guys.
And to point out what we were talking about earlier, Starlin cites his sources in that one when Thanos at the end is like, yes, I shall grant them this tranquility, for am I not Thanos? Am I not the dark side? Which, yeah, you totally are, dude. Am I not death?
That's right. That's right. At least make him look like Darkseid, not Metron. That's also in the interview. Then Jim Starlin flats out says, I was just trying to do the New Gods. It's fine.
I mean, nobody does cosmic as well as Jim Starlin, I think, when you're talking Marvel books. And this was right up there. It is a 1970s book, though. It's very verbose. You've got like a novel per page to read to get through before you can look at the art.
I wouldn't have been able to finish if I didn't start read the first half of this while I was on vacation. And I gotta be honest, it's really good. I really like it a lot. Man, you can't read this book after 10 p.m. Respectfully, Tylenol PM for my eyeballs. It is just, there's so many words and it's so dense. And you unfortunately have to read the words to know if it's just telling you information you've already read on another page. There's a lot of repeating and a lot of dramatizing. And so
so much exposition.
So much exposition.
So much spoken exposition.
Does this feel like a 70s book to you, or does it feel like a 60s book? Because everything about the themes and the connotation of the book, the tone of the book, feels extremely 70s. Everything about its construction feels like it's still deeply rooted in early Marvel, 1962 era Marvel, but done better. This reads so much smoother than early Stan Lee stuff. I'm no disrespect to Stan.
I think that's perfectly encapsulate what the Bronze Age is, right? The Bronze Age is this period of transition between what we would consider modern comics and what was considered Silver Age. And so they're pushing the envelope with some of this stuff, the art and the layouts and this and that, but they have not gotten away from the verboseness of that previous era. I mean, right, Chad?
But yeah, all the trippiness that's in here is present in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, that's true.
In Steve Ditko's Doctor Strange, it's just as wonky with the in-betweener.
Yeah, Strange Tales 181 dedicated to Steve Ditko. That was really confusing. I was like, wait, didn't Steve Ditko die just a few years ago? Yeah, he was totally alive. And I understand that you can dedicate things to people who are living. I get that. That's fine. I appreciate that. But man, the way it was done, it was just oh, so this is going to be the wonky issue. This is going to be the crazy, and boy was it.
But yeah, no, you can see the influence there, though. It's definitely marrying that with the 70s sensibilities. But like I said earlier, it still has its foot in the door where you have to keep this stuff no matter how out there it gets. It still has to be accessible.
I think the characterizations are pretty damn good. Adam Warlock aside, Thanos has a really good characterization. The first couple issues, they're a little verbose and long, but once Thanos, I think they're crackers for those three issues. Of Thanos.
Also, that Warlock issue 9 cover is one of the sickest covers I've ever seen. Where it's just Adam flying through space or whatever.
Oh,
I'm just wow, that feels iconic. That feels like a poster I wish I could own. Even though I gotta be honest, I don't really give a shit about Adam Warlock. He's fine. But man, that art is just sick. It reminds me a lot of is it the Gene Colan cover for Invincible Iron Man?
Yes, yeah.
Right? It's just him breaking, it looked like the suit had muscles. I'm just
Yeah, although I will say, though, He's covering up Magus and his fro. It's a placement, just to shift him a little bit further down. Keep those Magus eyes, they're hiding back there.
It looks like a giant, it's like a planet-sized fro. Any case, one thing that's not a planet-sized fro is any of our commercials. Yeah, we don't have commercials for any sort of hair products, but we do have commercials for other comic books you can pick up and other podcasts we love. So stay tuned for more Last Comic Shop after these messages for our ratings and recommendations.
Is there a more 70s conflict than between those two hairstyles?
The Farrah Fawcett feathers and the perm, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, Last Comic Shop listeners. This is John from Part Time Comics. You may have heard of our great series, Drumsticks of Doom, or Child Possession Services, but we have a new series coming out, LCS. A series of global catastrophes has left life on Earth decimated and made comic collecting a huge disaster. Follow a group of survivors as they run the Last Comic Shop. You can find more information on any of these books at linktree/part-time comics. That's part-time comics with an X.
In a world where there's often 60 plus years of history to worry about, how can you quickly get into a new comic character or franchise? If you're like me, then you turn to video games. But how well does that work out? In some cases, pretty well. In others, it's a giant disaster. But how can you know which games will set you on the right path, and which games will just leave you more confused than you were before? Play Comics is the show for you. I'm Chris, and each episode we take a look at video games based on comic properties and how well they stick to that source material. So listen in and get the scoop on which games are worth your time over at playcomics.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
All right, we're back with more of the Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings, where you don't have to like Adam Warlock to like our ratings. It would help. I mean, I don't know. Are you going to... hopefully people pick this up. I was really excited when J.A. Recommended this as this week's read pile, because I like these issues.
Listen, the good guys in Jim Starlin stories, they're disposable. Maybe it's Captain Marvel, maybe it's Adam Warlock, maybe it's Silver Surfer. It doesn't matter. It's all about the quest and the saga and all the other fun stuff.
That is very, very true. And we're going to quest over a 1 out of 4 scale from J. Scott. What do we got this week?
1 out of 4 soul gems.
The Soul Gems! For those folks playing at home, all the Soul Gems were originally green. That's right. If you look at Thanos' quest, they're all green.
Say like the Ninja Turtles?
Yeah. It was all, they didn't change the colors until Infinity Gauntlet. Maybe they thought it was confusing, but whatever. Long story short, we're going to start off with myself and my rating. And it is really hard for me not to give these issues a pretty high grade. I don't think they're a 4 because I'm stingy with my 4s in my old age. Like, I really have to think it's super awesome. But I will say, so this is some of the best 70s Marvel that's out there. When I mentioned that Steve Englehart and Jim Starlin and Steve Gerber all had their little fiefdoms in the 70s, that's because they were some of the best talent that Marvel had. And I like all of them tremendously. But I specifically like these issues that Jim Starlin did. I will say that until Thanos shows up, it's a little preachy, it's a little long-winded, but Thanos shows up and then all of a sudden it becomes crystal clear what is going on and what the stakes are. Thanos is there. It's another chapter in building him up to be one of the biggest bads in the Marvel Universe, and it does that in spades. And so I can't recommend this book enough for anybody that goes out there and loves Infinity War or Avengers Endgame or has just fallen in love with Thanos as a bad guy because of the Infinity Gauntlet or anything that they may have pulled from the MCU. I think this is where you need to start with your thinking about Thanos. And I think it's very digestible with great art. So I'm going to give it a 3.75. I think, again, this is some of the best from one of my favorite eras of comic books, which is the Bronze Age. And I don't mind it being verbose. Come on, people, they're books. Read a little bit. J.A.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I think it is a 3.75. Very verbose. Some of the recaps, while I understand why they're there, from a functional position, they did get a bit long-winded when you're reading issue after issue. This came out bi-monthly, so you can kind of understand maybe why they did this when they were putting them out back in the 70s. I don't think we've done enough to talk up the art and how beautifully classic Jim Starlin's art is. Adam Warlock looks like a Greek god or a Roman god or David or something. You know, he looks like he belongs on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. The way he's drawn is just these classic proportion character, not what you would see in the later, especially in the 90s when you started to get away from this. It's, you know, very hyper real. I mean, he's not big and he's muscular, but he doesn't look like some beefcake oversized guy. And even in the one issue that we didn't really talk about at all, which was the throw-in Pip issue at the end, Pip the Troll issue, there's still one page of Adam Warlock going through his psychosis, because that's the great thing about Adam Warlock. We're talking about a schizophrenic superhero who's going crazy and fighting himself. And this is a single page. It's a single panel with no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Adam Warlocks sitting on rocks in space, questioning his reality and his place within his own reality, within the greater reality that he's just gone through. All of that takes place within a throwaway story about Pip the Troll saving a sex slave that turns out that she's just playing with him and she's going back to Eros.
Star Fox, come on, say his real name.
So yeah, I just loved it. Incredible art, the cosmic scenes, you know, the blasters and the spacecraft and all the aliens and everything. It does really feel like European 70s comic books.
All right. George, you're up next.
I didn't like this book as much as you two did. I'm going to give it a 3. I recognize like the quality of this book, the craft in this book. It to me, and I know I get made fun of a lot when I have like really big, bold opinions. This book to me is like everything about Citizen Kane, where it's like I recognize the prestige and the importance of this. I am never going to watch Citizen Kane ever again. I don't think I'm ever going to read this book again. I'm really glad I did read it, just to see like the origins of the thing that I actually went on to like so much, especially when I was younger. Like the Marvel Cosmic era used to be really important to me, the stuff I've read. This book is gorgeous, and it deals with like really heady concepts. It deals with really intense philosophical debates that just happen with a bronze dude in a cape while he's being mind controlled. Like that's one thing I really appreciate, is like how it goes so far sci-fi that it becomes fantasy, and then it becomes sci-fi again. Like it just like it doesn't go too far one direction. It just like is constantly like looping, because that's how far it is taking it. It feels like a Twilight Zone series almost, just because like I never knew what was going to happen one issue to the next. This book is really good. I'm never going to read it again. I might get the Treasury edition, because Jay was right. It is like a stunningly gorgeous book. Like it felt very like George Perez to me, just like with the panel breakdowns in particular, and just like the actual layout of the book I thought was gorgeous. And just the amount of information they're able to convey on one page is like astounding. Like that feels like a recipe we actually have lost since this book came out. Like the density of the storytelling in 75, it just blows modern comics clear out of the water. So 3 out of 4, loved it, and probably won't revisit it anytime soon.
All right. Chad, wrap us up. How many soul gems are you giving it?
So I'm going to be somewhere in between. I'm going to go 3.33 repeating infinitely. Just because when I came into comics in the 90s, one of the first books I picked up was Silver Surfer with the Return of Thanos, which I've had to adjust to pronouncing it Thanos since the movies. There's always Thanos in my head. But the Silver Surfer run-up and the Thanos quest, those books were so epic, and like they just got me hooked in all these weird, wild scenarios. And then going back and reading this, I'm like, oh, Krator, that's where that guy comes from. That's where that big avocado-looking, he served an important role in the story here. Like I said, I'm somewhere in between. The art, super impressive. Jim Starlin is a storyteller. artistically is a great storyteller. His ideas as a storyteller are also so far out there. I would, however, feel like sometimes the connection was a little bit loose between issues. It's like, what? Why is this happening now? Like, the progression didn't always make sense to me as what was happening in the stories. But like I said, he did such a good job of making it accessible. If I didn't get it at the issue, I got it in the next issue in the recap page. Like, oh, wait, that's what that was. Okay, all right, yeah. And, like, he has an ability, Jim Starlin does, to explore all these deep philosophical places, but in a way that's still entertaining, that's still laid the groundwork for so much to come. So much of this is great, but it also is dense. It is tough to get through at times. Like, I like what George mentioned, where it's like, this is not an after 10 p.m. book. Like, I found myself a couple of times going through these issues and be like, wait, what? Like, I just nodded off for a page and a half. I got to go back. And that density there, wasn't my favorite reading experience I've had this year, but it is really good. It's hard to argue with how good it is and, how important it was. So 3.33333333 off into infinity.
Yeah, that's good because it's an infinity gem. That is what the Soul Gem is in retrospect. In any case, one thing that also is infinitely good, we hope, is our recommendations. Yes, these are other books you can pick up in addition to these issues of Warlock, which you can find in your local comic book shop, probably not in the buck bin and single issues, but you can still find them. I found at least one of these issues, The Strange Death of Adam Warlock, which was, issue 11, for $6 at my local comic book shop. So that's not too unreasonable at all. I will also say that one of my recommendations for reading these issues of Adam Warlock is to put on some Pink Floyd. That's what got me through and made me not fall asleep. I was listening to Shine On You Crazy Diamond and the rest of the stuff from Wish You Were Here while I was reading these pages, and boy, that added to the fun.
I was just about to say I was doing a saucer full of secrets.
Ooh. Well, let's go ahead and get your recommendation this week, J.A. What do you got for us?
So I am recommending Silver Surfer Rebirth of Thanos. This is a trade paperback, came out several years ago. You can get it on Comixology or Kindle or whatever as well. And this reprints Silver Surfer Volume 3, issues 34 through 38, plus Thanos Quest 1 and 2. And I still call it Thanos, Chad. I don't say Thanos. This is the return of Thanos, who had been killed off in the late 70s when Starlin left. And essentially, death returns Thanos to the land of the living so he can go balance the scales and kill half of the population again. Silver Surfer learns of this, tries to stop him. They two battle. Thanos tricks Surfer into thinking that he's killed just to buy himself some time so that he can collect all the Infinity Stones. And once he has that, he gains unlimited power. And then it's, this is the giant prelude to what was then the Infinity Gauntlet. And I would argue it's a better story. The Thanos Quest is a little bit, because Infinity Gauntlet, it says like too much.
Yeah, right. This because it doesn't have issue 49 where Silver Surfer is remembering all the people that defended Galactus, and that one's chilling too.
Jim Starlin writing, but great Ron Lim art.
Well, my recommendation this week is kind of a part of a lot of homework that folks that are interested in finding out all about the Marvel Infinite Saga, they should check out some of these books. A long time ago, I put together a list of who are the most important characters in the Infinity Gauntlet, right? There's Thanos, there's Adam Warlock, there's Silver Surfer. I want to read all about how these characters develop, right? So I put together reading lists of all these comic books that occurred before Infinity Gauntlet. And one of the reading lists was about Adam Warlock. And turns out there's actually a bunch of really good stories, the lead up to these particular issues of Warlock, for example. And 3 of those issues happen in Tales to Astonish in 94, 95, and 96. It's a little 3-part storyline done by Stan Lee with art by Marie Severin. And it's really a continuation of a Thor story that happened earlier with the High Evolutionary. who's kind of like Adam Warlock's papa. Like, the thing is about Adam Warlock is he was grown in a cocoon in some issues of Fantastic Four, tries to get a girlfriend in an issue of Thor, and then goes out into space. And who finds him with High Evolutionary, and that's who gives him the Soul Gem. Like, he's the one that finds the Soul Gem and gives it to Adam Warlock. So I was like, I want to know more about High Evolutionary. Why is he so powerful? Well, these issues tell that story. He's up on some planet. He brings the Hulk because all of his new men, all those animals that he made into people, have rebelled against him. And he needs the Hulk to quell the rebellion. When the Hulk refuses to do that and the animal men break in, he decides to bombard himself with all of these cosmic rays to become what ultimately will be the final product of all human evolution. And that's where the High Evolutionary is from now on. Like, that's what you get. So he becomes this godlike character. And from there, he goes out into space. He finds Adam Warlock. He finds the Soul Gem. He gives all this, and he sets up everything that comes there. But these 3 issues are really cool because they have the Hulk and the High Evolutionary and a bunch of animal men fighting on a planet. Pretty fun. And it'll probably take you about 15 minutes to read. So check those issues out. I think they're in a Marvel Masterworks. I think Volume 3 of the Incredible Hulk Marvel Masterworks. You can find these issues. But yeah, you should check it out. And then keep on reading. I might post this whole list of all these issues at some point.
Oh, man. Are you going to put it on the blog? Which I've actually been reading your blog lately.
The blog. Tell me what your recommendation is, George.
My recommendation, I love Marvel Cosmic stuff of my high school era. Like, I think the 90s stuff is super fun. I do think a lot of it's kind of weird, too. But the stuff that's coming out when I was in high school, I think I'm excited to find out if it's peak or not, or if I was 15. It starts with Annihilation. Technically, it starts with like a Thanos and like a Drax the Destroyer thing. Whatever, you don't have to read that. And that's actually my point here. You don't have to read Annihilation. You don't have to read Annihilation Conquest. I think you should start with Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a 2008 series from Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning, and Paul Pelletier. Man, that book rocks. That book is what got me so into these characters that I never thought I'd care about. Warlock is on that team, too. If you just want to see like a fun team dynamic book that has a lot of the characters from the story we talked about today, man, just jump into that Guardians book. It's 25 issues, started in 2008. I think it wrapped up by like 2010. Man, does Thanos make a pretty epic appearance in that run. It's very good. I cannot recommend it enough. Please check it out.
Very cool. We also have a past episode of The Last Comic Shop with that particular run. It's with our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review, if anybody wants to check that out. Chad, Wrap us up. What do you got?
Oh, man, now I want to recommend Badass Nova from the Marvel Cosmic days. Abnett Lanning.
Everybody loves Dick Ryder. Gotta love Dick Ryder.
Can't say it like that. But no, those books, incredible. So no, I am going to go back to Jim Starlin. And there was a time when he tried his hand at DC Cosmic. And he was one of the few people that made the DC universe as a whole kind of make sense in my head when he did Cosmic Odyssey with Mike Mignola on art. It was a 4-issue series. They were the premier 48-page, fancy pants books coming out. But he defined John Stewart, the Green Lantern, through tragedy in that book. He made Batman human when he punches out Light Ray for being a dick. And I just love when people punch out Light Ray. But he ties together all the New God stuff, and then a disparate group of DC heroes, including people like Starfire, and was Adam Strange in there?
Maybe.
Yeah, that might have been the Starfire, Adam Strange, them interacting together. But it was just these weird random teams coming together, and it was just lots of fun. And like I said, the DC universe in my head has always been, separate and segmented. You had your Metropolis, you had your Gotham City, and then you had New Gods, and like, how the heck does that intertwine? And Cosmic Odyssey did a great job of doing that in an entertaining story. And I was really sad that DC never really seemed to follow up on it. It just kind of ends there. But if you wanted to get a glimpse of what the Cosmic DC universe could have been, check out Cosmic Odyssey by Starlin and Mike Mignola. It's great stuff.
Yeah. His name was Forager! Oh, it's one of the best Batmans. Jim Starlin knew how to write Batman. Really. One of my favorite interpretations of Batman is in those Jim Starlin stories. In any case, we hope that one of the best interpretations of comic books you get every single week comes from the Last Comic Shop, right? Interpretations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all this great stuff that happens every single week on our podcast. And you can make sure that you don't miss any of the episodes by going out to www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com and rate, reviewing, and subscribing so you don't miss them. We've got Movie Mayhem coming up in just a couple short weeks. That's right. Our 5th annual Movie Mayhem. We've got some great movies lined up. Not only the Thunderbolts movie that'll be coming out, we're going to be revisiting Alec Baldwin's Shadow. We're going to be doing Atomic Blonde. We're even going to be doing the director's cut of Daredevil with how many more minutes of Coolio?
8 additional minutes?
It's
100%
more Coolio.
which makes it, in effect, 100% more Coolio.
And there you go. Yeah, so make sure that you're checking out the Last Comic Shop the rest of April as well, all the way through Movie May. And the rest
Seriously,
of...
how do you cut Coolio from your movie? What the hell?
Any case, where can they find us on the socials, Chad?
We're on the Blue Sky is where we spend most of our time. We still have accounts in other places at lastcomicshop.bsky. I don't know. Just search around, you'll find it. But you can find things like Golden Age covers to put you to bed at night. You can find things like comic book based discussions or pictures of buck bin finds or videos with some fun music behind there, flipping through comic books, or any sort of comic book bric-a-brac waits for you on our socials. And then you can always double back to our website, which is www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where you can find what else, J.A.?
You have a link to our merch store. If you want to support the podcast, you can get some Last Comic Shop merch, hats, t-shirts, tote bags, sweatshirts, coffee mugs. This week only, a special on suntan lotion to make you as bronze as possible.
That's right. That's straight up baby lotion. That's like, you just want to be crisp.
Oh, those cosmic rays can't be good for you.
No, they cannot. But he's got a soul gem, so what does he care?
There you go. And while we might be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we don't want to be the Last Comic Shop. So we encourage everybody to find a shop near you. They could use your support right now, whether it's picking up things like that Adam Warlock omnibus that's out there that's kicking butt. There's the Silver Surfer, the Rebirth of Thanos, with those great tales from the 90s. Speaking of tales, we've got Tales to Astonish, issues 94 through 96, where good luck finding those. I don't know where.
Marvel Masterwork. Yeah, they've got them. Incredible Hulk. Look for it.
Masterworky. And then also the masterful Guardians of the Galaxy, Abnett Lanning, Paul Peltier reboot. That was great. And then you could also find Cosmic Odyssey by Jim Starlin and Mike Mignola out there as well. All that and more waits for you at your local comic shop, so make sure you're checking those folks out.
Yes, and make sure that you're checking out Shortbox Summary. It's a wonderful podcast where we can find our friend George, and that's just at shortboxsummary.com, right?
Shortboxsummary.com, available anywhere podcasts are sold. Please listen. That'd be super duper cool. Also, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to see me complain about the current administration, and you can follow me on Blue Sky if you want to see me talk about comics.
But what about the current comics administration?
Oh, man, yeah, I'm actually about to lose my mind on the X-Men editorial team, but that's.
By the way, speaking of editorial, what did Tom say about issue 181?
Oh, what Tom said about issue 181 right here. Jim Starlin's run on the Warlock strip in Strange Tales was a particularly early 1970s concoction, combining freaky, mind-bending visuals with nihilistic concepts in the manner of Michael Moorcock. But this issue is perhaps his most pointed. While it works perfectly well on its own as an absurdist fable if you don't get the inside joke, 1000 Clowns is a condemnation of then-current Marvel that Starlin finds himself working for. He parodies and outright slanders coworkers, his opinions or activities he doesn't agree with. It's truly amazing that this got published. Either way, it's a very compelling read.
There you go. Any case, we've got more Last Comic Shop coming at you next week. Until then, I was the host of most, Larson. I was joined by Jay, Scott, and Chad Smith, as well as George from Shortbox Summary. And we hope that you stay safe, stay cosmic, because you are a child of the universe. And remember...
Why did the chicken cross the road? Because...
That one's a thinker.
Comic Shop Podcast was a 2025 Black Angus production.